Let's get going. I will start with a warm welcome, I would say, to all of you for joining our session today. This is out of about 10 National Training Week sessions that we are providing for free from Querist Consulting. I'm Dr. Shunitra. I am the founder as well as CEO of Querist Consulting, a small boutique consulting firm. We're based out of Petaling Jaya in Malaysia, and we do predominantly soft skills training. And today on the call, we have a partner, Naman HR as well, who's based out of India, Dr. Shreya Payal. They are from Naman HR. And we work together on a lot more offerings, including leadership assessment tools, as well as training programs, coaching, as well as a lot more tools coming up as well in the area of personal development, culture building in organizations, and soft skills. So I'm really happy to be able to bring our colleagues from India here with their knowledge on regional and global insights to some of these soft skills topics that we commonly talk about. And hopefully it is a very engaging session. So do post your questions in the chat box and we will get to them while we are in the midst of presentations as well. Feel free to ask anything. Nothing is out of scope in here. And let me pass it on now to Dr. Shreya as well to give a brief introduction and then start the training from there. So off to you, Dr. Shreya.
Thank you, Shanitra. Hi, everybody. Very good afternoon again. It's lovely. I can see a couple of cameras on, and that makes me really happy. So very, very warm welcome to all of you. Very quickly, I'm going to introduce myself, and then maybe we could take a couple of minutes to get to know you guys. So, I am an organizational psychologist by qualification, been in the learning and development space for about a decade. I have a PhD in psychology, and I am also a consultant who works largely with organizations in helping them transform their culture. Besides, of course, facilitation, which is my passion. And I work with again a lot of organizations on multiple areas of people development and learning. So that's about me. With me, I have Payal, who is managing this entire thing for us. Payal, would you like to introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Good evening to Malaysian, I think, and it's a good afternoon here. So, yeah, good to see everyone here. I'm Payal Antani, and as Shreya mentioned, I am managing this whole series of sessions which is happening. And I'm also an IO psychologist, pretty relating it to what Shreya has by her qualification, and have been into the space of learning and development from quite a few. And yeah, looking forward to seeing you all participating actively and, making the most out of it. So good luck. Yeah, good luck to everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Payal. All right. So how about we get to know each of you? You could maybe tell us a little about yourself. What do you do? And what is it that you're looking forward to from today's session? Anybody can begin, really.
Can I start?
Yes.
Yeah. So my name is Padma Kumar. You can call me Padma for short. I am based out of Hyderabad in India. I also run a small boutique consulting firm called Anmol Sparsh. And we are engaged in providing consulting, coaching, and training services. So I come with about 30 years of experience in the corporate world. And now it's primarily focused on consulting and training. That's a little bit more.
Thank you so much, Padma. Thank you for that. All right, so we have Muhammad Saliluddin in the chat who says, I work in a geotechnical laboratory and I'm listening to the training while working. Thank you so much.
Hi, if I could go next.
All right,
I'm
there's one
actually
muted. Yes.
Yeah, I'm actually working as event coordinator in Singapore. So yeah, but I actually resigned and I take a break for now. So I'm just trying to learn more soft skills. and see what I can do with it. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Kaman. Yes. Who's going to go next?
We are having someone write in the chat box, so I'll just help
Yeah.
you with those responses once they're there.
Yes.
So Arna says that hi, I'm Arna, admin executive in I if you
Boosted
Sunil, if you
properties,
can
is that
help
what you call?
me, yeah.
Yes, Erna is admin executive in Bousted Properties in property
Oh,
management,
okay.
also working and listening to this right now.
All right.
And then
Okay.
we have Razin as well, who's saying good afternoon. He's working as an environmental exec as well, and seeking a method to handle my mind while doing multiple works.
All right.
Aren't we all always trying to do this? So
Yeah.
yes, fantastic, fantastic. Anybody else wants to unmute and speak up, or feel free to type as well. It does help. No, not too many brave souls on the call today, Shreya.
That's perfectly okay, I think. All right. So whenever you guys feel free, whenever you guys want to talk about something, do feel free to do that. Once I start sharing my screen, I will not be able to see the chat. So either Sunitra or Payal can help us do that. And
We have more. We
yeah.
have more people actually typing their
Yeah.
introductions.
I'm
So
going to
we'll
wait a
just
couple
let
of
that.
minutes, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So Wazer
Arna
is
says we
working
two
as a
in
civil
one.
engineer and working and listening too. Alvin on the call is also working as electrical engineer, also listening and working. Marliana says we are two in one. Very cute.
That's all
So
right.
yeah, I mean, as you join, do write in the introductions, right? I mean, I think as we all see the chat and see who's doing what, maybe we want to connect separately as well. You never know. So perhaps we can start on with the training.
Wonderful. All right, okay, we will begin. And yes, do continue to type in your introductions. All right, just allow me a moment while I share my screen. Okay, I do realize that a lot of us are working while we are listening to this. But believe me, once we get a little into it, you might just want to stop working. I'm going to try to make this as interesting as I can for you. Today, we are going to talk about building resilient minds or building resilience, right? But before we begin, a few things that I would like to again emphasize. I know a lot of us are at work, but if possible, even for a short duration, whenever possible, do switch on your cameras. It makes us feel really nice to see who's on the other end. Keep your audio muted. But of course, whenever you want to speak, please unmute yourself and speak. You can just raise your hands whenever you want to speak and stop me, and then you can speak. So I'm completely all right with you, sharing or asking whenever you want to. I would really, really encourage you to participate actively, because when I get examples from you, it also helps me understand of how can I make this more relatable. And of course, all of us here can learn from each other. So the more we share, the more we learn. Right? And of course, this is a safe space. So we do respect individual pace, the speed at which we learn, the speed at which we, interact. But at the same time, we also respect whatever you share here. So feel free to share, because it's going to be just restricted to this room and it doesn't go out of this room. Okay. So today, couple of things that we're going to learn is, of course, discover personal meaning of resilience, explore traits of highly resilient people, and we will talk about how to develop resilient beliefs and resilient strategies to build resilience. So that's what we're going to do today. Um, how do we do this? So, of course, we will have some context setting, we will have some opening, we will talk about essentials of resilience. We will also talk about what makes people resilient, right? What are some of those things that make people resilient? We will talk about some pillars of resilience and then applications, actions, and closing. So that's the flow of the session for today. Very quickly, then I have one question for you. And once I've asked this question, I'm going to stop sharing my screen because, again, I want to see you guys share and interact. My question to you is, what's the one thing you enjoy doing outside of work? It could be a hobby, it could be a recreational activity, anything that you enjoy doing outside of work. You can either unmute and share, or you could put it in the chat box.
So I go,
Yeah.
I enjoy doing yoga.
Mm-hmm.
I got on to yoga fairly late in life.
Okay.
I now realize that it's very important for all of us to get introduced to it at a very early age.
Right.
Brings in so much of flexibility in the body
Mm-hmm.
and handles a whole lot of psychosomatic and other problems that people undergo. This is one thing that I am currently practicing, and I recommend to all people to try and see if it works for them as well.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Padma. Carmen says she enjoys eating in a restaurant. It gives her peace away from the hectic life. Absolutely. I think all of us do that. Thank you, Carmen. Elvin says they enjoy playing badminton and also travel whenever they have enough money. All right, thank you. TC, because I don't know your full name, reading and watching movies. All right, that's something that I enjoy too, TC. Mohammed Salaluddin says, for me, I love playing drums as a hobby or just as a stress reliever. Sometimes I go to karaoke with my fellow friends. All right, thank you. Any more responses? I see Umar is typing, but apart from Umar, okay. Um, Zuhail, is that correct? Is that how I say your name?
So highly.
Zohaili, okay. Okay, they enjoy nature outside, traveling and reading again for Umar.
For me, I actually enjoy meeting up with new people, having a cup of coffee, and actually talking about certain things that require a lot of analysis of trends or something like that, getting inspired by how they see the world.
Oh, that's very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, Shanitra. Um, okay, playing strategy-based games for creativity or problem solving. Very interesting. All right. While the rest of you continue to share, I wanted to ask you, what do you do outside of work? Because we need to have something that helps us keep going, right? It could be anything that we enjoy doing. And more often than not, what that also does is helps us connect with people who are similar to us. Right, so whether it is playing strategy-based games, playing drums, eating out, having a coffee with somebody and having a nice chat, enjoying the nature outside, traveling, reading, all of it. For instance, because I enjoy reading, I'm also a part of a book club where we meet once a week and talk about books that we've read. So it helps you bond. And I think just because, okay, am I back? Can you hear me? Yeah, I'm sorry about that
Yes.
interruption. Okay. All right. So just because I have people who I can talk to about certain things, or I can do some things with people, it just provides a nice support system to me, right? And that is what is very, very important when we talk about resilience. We will come to it in some time, but I wanted to highlight the importance of having something that you really care about, something that you really enjoy, right? So moving on again, I'm going to start sharing my screen again. So now that we've understood that, of course, having something to look forward to is very important for being resilient. My question to you guys is, what is resilience after all? And why are we talking about it? Why do you think it is important for us to talk about something like resilience?
Too many stress in everyday stuff. So we need to be
Absolutely.
stronger.
Yes, there's a lot of stress around us. Our lifestyles have changed. We're constantly hustling, constantly multitasking, and because of which there are too many things that we're dealing with together and it leads to a lot of stress. So, to manage that stress, it's very important that we are resilient. Anything else?
See, we have a lot of expectations, and many times those expectations, sometimes they come true, sometimes they do not. And in the event of a setback, it is very important to have resilience to continue doing what we have to do and not get pulled down by certain setbacks that we face in life.
Absolutely. We all are setting out to do too many things. You're very, very right, because we're very ambitious. We want to do too many things. Sometimes it all works out for us, but sometimes it doesn't. And when it doesn't, you really need to know how to bounce back. To give you a very simple example, just a couple of weeks back, my daughter, who's 5, and I love to keep talking about her because you learn so much from kids. She had a sports day at school, right? And she was participating in a race and she did not win. Now, again, as parents, all of us, we always want to encourage our kids to win and do their best and all of that. So she also had a lot of pep talk from a lot of people around her, right? And when she did not win, she started crying because she did not know how to cope. She did not know how to cope up with that loss. Now, for us also, similarly, there are a lot of things that we aspire to do. And that's when it's very important that if we do not get to our goals, we need to know how to bounce back. But bouncing back is just one aspect of being resilient. To bounce back after setback is the first thing. But along with it, it's very important for us also to be able to adapt to the constantly changing things around us. Because now you look at uncertainty, you look at, the environment we often talk about, the VUCA world or the Barney world, right? And we often say that it's very volatile, it's very uncertain, it's complex, right? And for an environment that is constantly changing at rates like this, it is very, very important that we're able to adapt to the constantly changing environment. I'll give you a very simple example. A couple of years back, actually a couple of decades back, Indian banking system moved from a completely manual system to a computerized system. And a lot of people who were into the banking segment back then did not know how to operate computers. So people who were, let's say, in their middle ages or a little more than their middle age, some of them were able to learn how to operate a computer and therefore were able to keep their jobs. But for people who could not adapt, had to leave and take a voluntary retirement. So, and now this is a couple of decades back. Now we're changing even more, right? Every probably week there is an update on every app on our phone, right? The way we talk, the way we behave, the kind of things that our work demands out of us is changing. And because everything is changing at such a high pace, we need to be able to adapt, because if you're not able to do that, again, it'll lead to a lot of stress that we're not able to manage. And the last thing that resilience also talks about is our ability to grow. Because if you're stuck at one place, if you're not moving, if you're not changing, if you're not growing, it automatically makes you feel extremely stressed, stuck, and therefore again contributes to a lot of stress. How many of you have wanting to learn newer skills but are not able to do it because work doesn't allow the time for it? How many times does that happen? I see one hand raise. 2, 3, right? At least 3 of us. So now, and the fourth, if you include me. So now, if you're not able to make the time and if you're not able to get the skills that are necessary for us to grow, you will realize that you feel very stuck. And because you feel stuck again, you realize that ability to grow is thwarted, which makes us feel stressed. So bouncing, adapting, growing, despite the circumstances around, is something that's very, very important for us to become resilient or develop resilience. So that's what resilience means. Resilience is an individual's ability to bounce back after setbacks, adapt despite the environment around, and grow in the face of challenges. How many of you, or rather, is there another element that you would like to add to this definition? If there is something more that you've experienced.
I think one important thing, Shreya, is also like, when something happens, we often tend to blame someone else or blame some situation or find something external to pinpoint as an excuse rather than look inwards. I don't know, maybe that's partially within grow as well and bounce as well. But that's very common in people who lack resilience, I see.
Absolutely. And thank you for bringing that to the table, Shanitra. We will talk about it in a bit. But yes, that's very important. And like you rightly said, it's partly in adapting, it's partly in growing, it's partly in bouncing. It's you may not be able to put it straight away into one bucket, but it's definitely a very important part of being resilient. So thank you. Thank you for sharing that. All right. So we're going to do a very, very quick activity here. Can you see my screen?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. Okay. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So there's a QR code on the screen that I need you to scan. It will take you to a poll. It has 5 questions that you need to answer. And then, we will discuss what the results are. Yes, Lee, you have a question? You raised your hand. Do you have a question?
No,
Okay.
no,
Okay.
I think it had by mistake. I think that's what
Okay.
she writes.
All right. Okay. No problem. Okay. Are you able to scan the QR code? Everyone? Or anybody facing a challenge doing that?
I found the first question, Shreya, and then it says, please wait for presenter to change
Yes.
slides.
So once you've,
yeah.
So once you've
Okay.
scanned it, let me now move to the next question. Is everybody done answering the first question? Then I can move to the next one.
Felix
Okay.
says yes. Lee
All
says
right.
no. Okay. No.
Okay. Can you see the next question now?
Not yet for me.
Yeah. Okay, now can you see it now?
Also not yet. Has
Elvin says
anybody been able
yes.
to see? No, not yet as well.
Yeah. No, not yet.
Not yet?
No,
Oh, that's strange.
not yet.
Okay. All right, let me refresh once.
Yep, most of the
That's okay,
participants are
Shreya.
saying no as well.
That's okay, Shreya. Can take a minute. That's okay.
Yeah, I'm just going to Yeah, I don't know why this is stuck.
I think there's a question in the chat box. The next question need wait after answer question 1.
Yeah, that's what. So I'm
Yeah.
trying to move it now.
It's on Mentimeter, Shreya.
It is on Mentimeter.
Okay.
I don't know why we can't change it. Does this show now? If not, then I'm simply going to put the question in the chat box. Doesn't change, no?
No, so far, no.
Okay, so the next question that we're looking at is, when facing a challenge, I often seek new solutions. You can put your responses in the chat box.
Maybe yes, yes. Sometimes.
Not always, yeah.
Okay, not always.
Yeah,
All
we have a
right.
mix of maybes and yes and
Maybes and
sometimes.
yeses. Right. Okay. So just keep a tab of, how many yeses, how many nos, and how many maybes you are responding to individually, right? So that when we talk about these questions, we will be able to make sense of our responses. Okay, thank you. The next question that I have for you is, I frequently reflect on past experiences to learn from them.
Lots of yeses, Shreya.
Yes,
Yeah, happy to see them.
Absolutely. I love that.
Confidence. Okay, thank you. The next question is, I can regulate my emotions when stressed. Okay, kind of, overtly sometimes. Yes. Yes at work, but not when I'm home. Okay. All right, thank you. And the last question is, I am comfortable in expressing my emotions to trusted individuals.
This is mixed. No, of course, sometimes, mostly, yes. So all options are there. Depends on the problem as well, of course, sometimes, yeah, I suppose. Very honest answers.
Yes. All right. So now that was my last question. Now let's look at each of these questions one by one. Okay. When faced with challenges, I find myself extremely overwhelmed. About 9 people said maybe, because we could see this question on Mentimeter, and about 4 of us said yes. Usually, again, when the situation is such that it has to offer more than what we can take, we definitely find ourselves overwhelmed. And when that happens, it's very important for us to be able to know how to manage it, right? That's a part of being resilient. The second question, which said, when facing a challenge, I often seek new solutions. So again, the tendency to be stuck versus the tendency to start looking at different aspects of the problem and then trying to look at different solutions is again a part of being resilient. So again, if you've said yes to this, it definitely means that you show some traits of resilience, right? It may be a maybe for some of us, because not all situations are such where we are able to, find alternative solutions, right? And sometimes they are so overwhelming that we cannot look beyond them. So that may happen. The third question, I frequently reflect on past experiences to learn from them. And we had a lot of yeses here, and I was very happy to see them, because a big part of being resilient again is for us to be able to reflect and learn from the experiences we've had. The second last question, which said, I can regulate my emotions when stressed. I don't think I met any of you in the previous session, but in the previous session, when we were talking about emotions, emotional awareness, emotional maturity, there was a lot that we discussed on why it is important for us to be able to be aware of our emotions and then be able to regulate them. Because, when we are able to do that, we're able to respond to situations much better than when we simply react to it in the moment. And the last one is, I'm comfortable in expressing my emotions to trusted individuals. Like we, spoke about it in the first question. What do you enjoy doing outside work? There also, finding a community, finding a people that you can fall back on is very important. And then if you have out of those trusted people who you can also share your emotions with, share your challenges with, then I think, you've just nailed the a big solution to becoming resilient, right? So that was what the quick poll was about. Let's move on to talking about the science of resilience, right? And what really happens when we encounter challenging situations. So the entire reason for us to also do the poll was for us to understand that what really happens. Yes, I have Lee. Yes, Lee, do you have a question? Do you want to say something?
I think that one probably is from the hand raised earlier on. Two people didn't put their hands down.
All right. Okay. All right. Okay. So I'm just going to lower your hands for you. All right. Thank you. Yes. Yes. You have a question, Mohammed? No. Okay. All right. So, science behind resilience. So again, what happens to us when we encounter situations that are challenging? Every time we face a challenging situation, every time we face a situation that's difficult, that's more than what we can manage, this is what happens in our brains. There is a small, or rather not so small part, very, 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 very small. You see the blue dot here with an alarm? That little pea-sized part of our brain is called amygdala. And amygdala is that part of the brain that is responsible for dealing with stressful situations. So every time we have an alerting, alarming, triggering situation, amygdala gets activated and it leads to what is called a fight or a flight response. Now, what is a fight or a flight response? Either we choose to fight the situation or we choose to run away from it. Let's say, for example, what happens when you are when you are at the bus stop, just about to reach the bus stop, you see the bus is just, you're about to miss it. What happens to you? What happens to you when you are just reaching the bus stop and you see the bus leaving from the bus stop? Anybody who takes buses? I'm sorry, I should have asked that first.
Depends. Sometimes I would get pissed off for missing it. Sometimes I would just let it go and tell myself it's best to just wait for another one.
Yeah. So if you have time, you could wait for another one. But let's say you're running late. This is the bus that you need to catch. It's leaving. Your brain is going to trigger a fight or a flight response. It's a stressful situation for you. You cannot miss this bus, right? So all your energy is going to get directed to your feet, and you're going to be able, like, you're going to run as fast as you can to be able to catch that bus, right? That's what a fight response is. You're going to run and try your best to get a bus. Now imagine you see a tiger in front of you, like you're in a forest, you see a tiger, you're scared, what are you going to do? It's going to run, it's going to activate a flight response, and you're going to simply try to run away from there. Right? So every time you have a situation that's critical, that's scary, that feels very overwhelming, this little part called amygdala gets activated. But our brain has another very crucial part, which is called the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is responsible for all planning, all prioritizing, and finding solutions. To become more resilient, to deal with situations better, we need to make this this part of the brain stronger, our prefrontal cortex stronger, because that helps us plan, that helps us prioritize, that helps us set goals, that helps us find solutions. Right? And that's why these two parts of the brain become very important. Amygdala gets triggered on itself. You can't do much about it. But you can mitigate the effects of the fight and flight response by activating the prefrontal cortex and making it stronger. And all strategies that we're going to learn today, to become more resilient, are going to help us strengthen our prefrontal cortex, because that's going to help us deal with critical situations. Okay, any questions at this point? I'm going to just stop for a second to see if we have questions, if we have thoughts.
There's a response in the chat box that says scream and run to catch. If cannot, think what is other option.
Yes, right. And that's typically the scream and run is what amygdala does. Think of another option is what prefrontal cortex does. Right? Thank you. Thank you for putting it. I think that makes very simple for us to remember as well. Anything else before we move on?
I think no questions at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay. Wonderful. So now this is what happens. Now we know what happens to us when we encounter difficult situations, right? And therefore, what's crucial for us then is to also figure out alternative solutions, like we said. And to do that, I'm going to show you examples of a few movies. Yes, Pal.
Yes, Shreya. So before you jump into this slide, I think there is one question coming from Padma, which says, besides flight, fight, and freeze, what else does amygdala do?
I think to not complicate things too much, let's restrict the discussion to the fight and flight response. I mean, different parts of the brain perform multiple functions, right, for different purposes. But if I start talking in detail, I think we will spend a lot of time doing that. Being a psychologist, that also happens to be one area I'm very, very interested in. And it'll be difficult for me to stop after a point. But we can connect later, Padma, to discuss this. After the session, I can stay back and we can talk more about this. Is that all right?
He says, okay, I think you can continue. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you. All right. So I have for you a couple of movies. I don't know if you can identify them, but let's try to do that. The first movie, do you identify what movie this is? Anybody who identifies the screenshot?
Chat says Rocky.
Yes, Rocky. Right. Rocky is this movie about a heavyweight lifter, right? Who's forced, or rather, who's provided an opportunity to have a match with a champion, right? A fighting match, right? And how he overcomes his own doubts, his own fears in the process, and is finally able to actually have that match, right? So that's what the entire movie is about. The second movie, anybody can guess that?
Shawshank Redemption.
Shawshank Redemption, right? Again, what is the movie about? What's the movie about? Anyone? Okay, the movie is about prisoners, right? Who really who want to get out of the prison, and then their ways and means of trying to find their way out of the prison. And the third movie, I'm sure a lot of us recognize this one.
Pursuit of Happiness is something people are right.
Pursuit of Happiness, right? Again, the movie about a father who's lost his job, is now trying to get another job, separated from his partner, and has a son to take care of, and how they struggle through every day, in his attempt to finally find a stable job and be able to take care of his son. right? All these movies have something in common. All the characters have a, not one, but series of challenges in front of them. Their every day is difficult. Imagine being in a situation where you're struggling every day for the basics and you keep failing and you keep failing, and every day you have to get up again trying to make it a new day. Now imagine a situation like this where stress levels are extremely high, your body's constantly on a fight and a flight response, and you're trying to deal with your everyday. Situations like this are examples of what it takes to develop resilience. Another movie that I can think about is The Terminal, Tom Hanks, if you've seen. He lands at the airport to realize that his country's been declared as not valid. So his passport is not valid anymore. His country is at war. He cannot get out of the airport because otherwise, he'll be caught by the police. And how for months together he has to stay at the airport, find ways of staying at the airport, find ways of earning so that he can stay and eat there. Right? So many movies like this will give you examples of what it is to develop skills that will help you get past every day. Right? And therefore, I taking reference of all these movies, I come to the context of resilience. When is it that we need to be resilient? We need to be resilient in times of stress, when the situation needs more from us than we can give. That's typically the definition of stress, right? When I do not have resources, mental, physical, or any other resources enough to be able to deal with the situation, that's what stress. When change is happening around me and I don't know how to cope with it. When I'm faced with loss, where I need to be calm to be able to build resources to deal with the situation, are all those situations where I'm going to need to be resilient. And where it could happen in personal space, it could happen in professional space, it could happen in social space. So it could anywhere and everywhere in my life, I could really need to be resilient. I want to do a very quick reflection with you before I move into strategies to build resilience. I need you to think about one situation where you wanted to cope, but you could not cope with it. It could be in personal space, it could be in professional space, it could be in a social space. I need you to list down the reasons why you could not cope up with the situation, the factors that stopped you from coping, and the meaning that you attach to the situation which blocked your ability to cope. What does it mean to you, right? How does it make you feel? That's what the last question is about. How does it feel for you to not be able to cope with the situation? All right. So take about 2-3 minutes, think about the situation, answer all these questions for yourself. And if you think you would like to share the answers with us, we would love to hear from you. If it is too personal, if it is something that you will not be comfortable sharing, do the activity. It is all right if you do not share. Right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen again because I want to see the faces here. But yeah. Okay, Padmas Kumar says the situation is loss of a dear friend. Okay. Oh, you will need to see the questions though. I'll have to share again.
Chat has responses
Okay.
by Padma that says situation loss of a dear friend. Reasons:
Mhm.
very close for several years, too
Mhm.
young to go,
Mhm.
dependence left behind.
Mhm. All right. So that was, of course, the reasons that did not help you cope up. What were the factors that inhibited your resilience, Padma? What stopped you from being resilient? You were too close. That could be one. What else?
Felt that it was unfair.
Okay, you felt that it was unfair. And that's the meaning that you attached to the situation. All right. Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that.
There's also a response that
Mhm.
says, it's by Carmen. It
Mhm.
says that situation was a demanding customers that
Mhm.
started being vulgar and rude in my
Mhm.
face in
Mhm.
front of a very long queue of customers. Reason: stressful situation as the restaurant was wrecked by strong storm and rain, and we had to evacuate some people.
What about the other two? The last two questions come.
At that point, there was too
Hmm.
many people talking and supervising.
Okay.
That is something she says.
All right.
And she says also that I didn't know who to listen to.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
And
Thank you. Thank you.
Arvin also has a situation, Shreya.
Mhm.
If you want to hear right now, or
Yes,
you may
please.
want to address Carmen and then we can go ahead.
Yep. So only the last question, Carmen. Again, I would like to know what is the meaning that you attach to the situation. How did that make you feel?
Upset, she says.
All right. Yes. Payal, what's the next response?
Yeah, it is by Arvind. He says situation is facing tight deadlines.
Hmm.
Reason is not being able to manage the timelines.
Okay.
Factors, he says, unable to prioritize.
Hmm.
And meaning he gives is not being able to commit to the task.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing. Uh, while you guys continue to share, there's one example that I want to share with you. And it's not related to work, but I want to share because it's something that's very close to me. So when I was a student, we moved cities. And I moved from a relatively smaller city to a bigger city. And when that happened, uh, I wasn't really prepared for that movement because I was about 15 years old, right? So I wasn't really prepared for that movement. And therefore, I ended up getting bullied in my new school in the new city. Now, reasons that did not help me cope up because the more the bullying happened, I started developing an inferiority complex and I did not know how to respond to those statements that the bullied made, right? So I felt that I did not have enough ways to cope with it. I did not have enough support. I did not know who to go to for help, who to talk to about this, because it also made me extremely scared. And for somebody who is an a very, very high performing student in my previous school, academically, non academically, in all my extracurriculars, I started feeling extremely underconfident. And the meaning that I attached to that situation was that I was only good for that small town. In a bigger city, I am not good enough. And that's the meaning that I started attaching to the situation. And that's how I started feeling about myself. Right. And it took me years to come out of that and develop my confidence again, where I could have social interactions without feeling scared. So sometimes, situations become extremely overwhelming where you do not know who to go to for help. You do not know who to talk to. And when such situations happen, we often start um, talking to ourselves negatively, which is what I also did. I cannot deal with this. This is too much. Nothing in my life can ever go right. And when we start doing things like that, we realize that we are stopping ourselves from developing resilience because we're stuck in a loop. Right? And the more and more we're going to talk about resilience, you will realize how, changing how we talk to ourselves really works. For somebody then who's really resilient, they're optimistic, but realistically. So they don't want the world for themselves. They don't think that they can achieve everything. And that's why they're realistically optimistic. Their thoughts and their emotions are interconnected, and they're well aligned. They're aware of what's happening in the here and now. They acknowledge, they accept the situation for what it is, and they start looking for solutions instead of getting stuck into the problem. They're able to deal with challenges with humor, with wit, and they have a high learning curve, which helps them work on their strengths to deal with the situation better. Right? So, this is what a resilient person would look like. Now, some of us may have some of these traits, you may not have all of them. Irrespective, whichever trait you think you have out of the list, if you're able to work on it and if you're able to leverage on it, then you will realize that you're able to respond to situations in a much better way than for somebody who does not have any of these traits. Right? So, quickly, I'm going to tell you what challenges us every day. Some of us have fundamental needs. All of us have fundamental needs, right? And those fundamental needs have to be met, without which you will not be able to function. So, for example, my need for closeness with people, my need to talk to people, my need to be around people, versus my need for individuality, where I also want to do certain things on my own, not with people. Now, what happens in organizations again is sometimes there is a high need for closeness, because of which everybody starts thinking alike. And the culture that we develop in the organization is such that nobody thinks different. And therefore, when there are problems, we're not able to respond to them faster because everybody's thinking in the same way. Versus, if an organization has an extremely high need for individuality, you will realize that people just work in silos and then there is no closeness. So both of these needs at extreme will not help us function. Similarly, even in families, if there is too much bonding, it becomes suffocating after a point. If there is too much individuality, everybody is doing their own thing. Right? So again, an extreme of this becomes difficult, right? Then you don't know how to approach situations. There is another fundamental need, which is my need for autonomy versus my need for structure. So I need people to help me. I need to go, to people for support. Versus there are things that I also want to handle without anybody's interference. Again, if my need for autonomy is too high, or my need for autonomy for structure is too high, it will be difficult for me to deal with situations in a healthy manner. And lastly, my need for growth versus my need for survival. So if like Padma was saying at the beginning, all of us are very ambitious. So if my need for growth is very high, where I'm constantly hustling, trying to manage multiple things, versus my need for survival is too high, where I don't do anything and I'm just trying to meet my basics every day, irrespective, the situation becomes very frustrating because I'm not able to function effectively. So even with fundamental needs, if I'm working towards extremes, I will realize that it comes in my way of being resilient. And therefore, what we need to do is start looking at creating a balance. Now, sometimes the biggest barrier to resilience is self-created. And what I was talking to you about, in some time back, thinking traps or negative self-talk. We start looking at situations in a way that is negative, right? For example, if something goes wrong, I always say it's because of my personal limitations, or I'm not good enough. I did not deal with this properly. I am not taking care of my family. I am being too ambitious about work. It's always due to my limitations that I'm not able to function. Sometimes we also look at the world as black and white. It's all or none, you know? So, for example, when something goes wrong, again, I will share a simple example. Uh, when you're trying to do something, right? When you're trying to achieve something, when you have a goal in front of you, let's say, for example, a lot of us are into consulting, right? Or into customer facing roles, like you guys shared previously. So when you are into a customer facing role, all my customer interactions have to go seamlessly. I have to have very good customer interactions. That's an absolute way of looking at things. So either it all goes well or nothing goes well. Even if I have one interaction that did not go well with my customers, I will feel like nothing in the world is all right. Nothing goes well with me. Right? So having that all or none sort of a perspective. Sometimes we catastrophize things too much. Something small happened, but we think that some everything's gone wrong again. So like I was saying some time back, one small interaction did not go right, but my entire day gets ruined because of that one small interaction that did not go well. And I start telling myself, I'm good for nothing. I can never have these interactions right. Look at so and so, they're so good. I am always the one who has challenges, and such discussions with self. Right? Or you could have self-sabotaging behaviors. Again, these behaviors, for example, I need to be perfect at everything. I cannot be not perfect. Right? And every time I realize that I've not done even one thing perfectly, or there is one small error in what I have done, I start thinking that everything is wrong. So sometimes these thoughts also, or our behaviors, are such that stop us from being resilient. Right? So if you go back to all the 4 questions, then the factors that stop you from being resilient, some of those factors are self-created. The way I think, the way I behave also comes in my way of being resilient. So these are all the barriers to being resilient. Again, I'm going to stop for a second, pause to see if we have understood, if we have questions. Any questions? Any thoughts? Mohammad Salaluddin and Yong Hui Fong, thank you for sharing your responses. I think I really appreciate you sharing such personal, such experiences that are really close to ourselves and have affected us. I really appreciate you sharing all of that here. Yes, Carmen, I will be teaching you how to get rid of negative self-talk. Okay, all right. So if you don't have questions, I'm going to quickly go to strategies, because we've talked enough about what is resilience, why we cannot be resilient, what is required to be resilient. But apart from those traits, let's move on to talk about certain very, very key strategies that are going to be useful for us in being resilient. And these I call pillars of resilience. There are 4 key pillars on which we can rely if we want to become resilient. The first pillar is cognitive flexibility. The second pillar is building connection and support. The third pillar is having purpose and values, or being aware of our purpose and our values. And the last one is building emotional awareness. Let's look at the first one, which is cognitive flexibility. Now, why I want to talk about cognitive flexibility is, like I said, one of the reasons why we're not able to build resilience or be resilient or respond to situations with resilience is because we get stuck in our heads. We focus too much on the situation, we focus too much on our problems, all the negative self-talk, all the self-sabotaging behavior all of that affects us, and because of which we're not able to respond. Also, look at it this way: our brains at any given point in time have the capacity to process 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information, right? Which is either 5 to 9 chunks of information is what our brains can process at any given point in time. But look at your environments around. There are people speaking, there are phones ringing, there is traffic, there are thoughts in your head, there is work that's lined up, there is your manager asking you for something, there are your co-workers doing something. Do you think your brain has enough capacity to process all that information? And because our brains are so overwhelmed, we often are stressed, right? And that's why sometimes all of these limiting behaviors, limiting thoughts come into picture, because our brains do not have enough capacity to deal with all this overwhelming environment around us, right? So cognitive flexibility is one such thing that helps us choose our responses better, even when we are under stress. Cognitive flexibility is, if you remember about the prefrontal cortex, training your prefrontal cortex to respond better to challenging situations, right? So again, how can you develop your cognitive flexibility? The first way to do that is to reframe setbacks. And common, that's one technique that we use to challenge all our negative self-talk as well, right? So what is reframing setbacks? Think about, let's do this. Think about one situation that you have right now, which you think is difficult for you to handle. One challenge that you're experiencing right now. If any of you can share that, we can use that as an example and see how reframing works. How do you reframe? Can you think of an example? Anyone? Okay, let me give you an example. Okay, Payal has an example. Yeah, Payal?
Yeah, so I wanted to share, like not a direct example, but something that I've learned. I'm sure you must be aware or must have heard Milton Erickson.
Hmm.
The way he's one of the hypnotherapists out there in since he's no more, but he used to be a pioneer. So he used to always reframe these very I would say very close to heart sentences, such as they are very negative and they might be a little very close to us basically. So for example, taking just a sentence, just like he might have said, that, I'm not feeling that great, that I am of no use. I don't feel useless. I'm resourcefulness, So that's when he would have done it in this way, that I appreciate how carefully you consider these suggestions before implementing them into your own development. So that's the way the feeling of feeling hopelessness, he's trying to make it look like you have a more enhanced self-reflection. So just an
Yeah.
example that I wanted to share.
No, I think thank you for sharing that. That's helpful. Another example. So let's say, for example, I'm a facilitator, right? I do these sessions. Let's say on one given session, I didn't receive great feedback. I received a terrible feedback from my participants. Okay. That's a setback for me, because as a facilitator, I'm supposed to get good feedback from my participants. So assume I don't get good feedback. What happens? The first thought in my head is, how could this happen to me? Right? I did my best. The participant looked very interested in the session. Then how could this happen that the feedback is not nice? And it drains my energy. It pulls me down. It starts me to question about my ability to facilitate. Was I not good enough? Right? I tried so much. I thought I did a good job. So even if my good job wasn't good enough, then what's the use? Right? And the spiral of thoughts will begin. Now, one setback had me engage into such negative self-talk. So now how do I deal with it? Right? I could either get into an all or none and say, I'm good for nothing. If this session could not give me good feedback, then I don't know what will. So it's an all or none thought, right? Either I get good feedback always, or else I'm useless. So how do I challenge this? I need to stop and I need to reflect and say, okay, how many sessions have I conducted in this month? In this month, let's say, for example, I did 10 sessions. Now, out of all the 10 sessions, how many sessions were such where I got terrible feedback? Only this one. So now, if I compare 9 session feedback versus a 1 session feedback, out of 10, I got good feedback for 9 sessions. It was only this 1 session that did not get me good feedback. So am I really useless? So you start challenging, you start objectively asking yourself questions that will help you challenge your thought, right? So if it was just this one instance, so the question that you ask yourself is, does this happen to me always? If the answer is yes, then it's a different thing. But if the answer is no, if it doesn't happen to you always, what was different this time? Try answering that question. Maybe I was meeting this audience for the first time. This kind of audience was very new. I have never trained in this industry segment. There could be multiple answers to this, right? So what was different? Once I have answered this question, what was different? What's another way to see this? Another way to see this is that I'm usually all right as a trainer. I do well as a trainer. This once, because it was a new industry for me, I was not able to deliver to my best and I did not get good feedback. Let me figure out ways of working around this. And that's how you reframe setbacks and situations. So start looking at it more objectively, and this will help you move from problem towards solutions. So that's what cognitive flexibility is, to help your brain start thinking in ways that are more solution oriented than more problem oriented. And how do you do that? You do that by objectively questioning the situation at hand. Does this happen to me always? If not, what was different this time? And once I have an answer to that, what can I do to mitigate this? Right? These are 3 simple questions that you can ask yourself to challenge your negative self-talk or your self-sabotaging behavior. Right? Any questions? Any thoughts? Any doubts?
Maybe one question, Dr. Shriya, is this an exercise you must do by yourself, or is it sometimes helpful to talk to someone to ask these questions?
Okay. Usually, even if you do it all by yourself, it works because you're objectively challenging your own thought process and you're looking for evidences to prove you right or wrong. Right? So let's say, for example, like I asked myself, out of 10 trainings that I did, how many trainings did I get bad feedback? Right? So you can do this by yourself. However, if you think that despite all of this, you're not able to come out of a spiral, you might want to approach somebody else and talk to somebody else who can also give you better evidences. For example, talk to your manager who can tell you other things that you do right, or you can talk to a friend who tells you how you are wonderful as a friend. Right? So it's all right to not do well maybe in one part of your life, but all other parts of your life you're perfectly all right. So you can never be an all-rounder in your life, right? You do good somewhere, you learn to do better somewhere else, and that's how it works. But thank you for asking that question, Dr. Shanitra. Yes, you can um, do this yourself, and if you do not feel confident about doing this yourself, always do it with a trusted somebody. All right, so that's the first pillar, which is cognitive flexibility.
We also
The
have some
second
comments in the chat, Shreya.
Sure. Yeah, I'm going to.
Erna says, I always believe in if we can solve the problem, why worry? And if we cannot solve the problem, why worry? We had tried our best.
Yeah. And again, that's cognitive flexibility, right? So what is in my control, I have already done. what is outside my control, I need not worry about it. Right? So there is a very interesting concept which is called a circle of influence and a circle of control. So imagine that you're drawing three concentric circles, right? In the center, in the smaller circle, it's you, right? In the second circle is all your challenges, but these challenges are such that you have a direct influence towards, right? It is something that you can do something about. Let's say, for example, I'm trying to lose weight. That's a challenge, right? That I'm obese is a challenge, and I need to lose weight. Now, that is within my control, because if I start monitoring my diet, if I start working out, I can lose weight, right? But let's say, for example, I have um, I have a friend who needs to lose weight. Now, I can help that friend to an extent, but ultimately it's the friend's responsibility to lose weight. So it's outside your control. You can only do so much. Can I constantly keep worrying about why my friend is not able to lose weight? I can't, because after a point, it is beyond my control. It is beyond my circle of influence. And therefore, the third concentric circle is something that I need not worry about too much, because these are things I don't have direct control or influence on. What I can control is in the second circle, and therefore those are the things that I should really focus on and make effort towards. Right? So that's one concept that definitely helps us. So every time you're confused about whether you should invest in a particular problem, draw these circles and see where does it fall really? Does it fall within my circle of influence? If it doesn't, then it's something that I need not worry about, because I cannot directly influence it. Yes? All right. Yes, so that's cognitive flexibility. The second pillar for developing resilience is having connection and support. Like we spoke about even in our ice breaking activity. If there are things that you can do with people, if there are things that you can talk to with people, it really helps, because we as humans are wired to belong. Our brains are designed in such a way, we are designed in such a way that we seek out support. We want to be with people. We want to be with family. We want to be with friends. And you will realize that more and more we find ourselves lonely. It causes stress, it causes depression, it causes a lot of other issues, because we lack support. So if you are able to reach out to people before you burn out, that is going to definitely help you develop resilience. So again, the example that I gave you about me getting bullied, had I spoken to somebody in time without feeling scared of how people will respond to it, what will happen if I share, if I had actually reached out to a teacher, my family, or a friend, I would have been in a much better position to handle that situation than what happened to me. A lot of times we struggle with issues that we are scared to ask or share about. What will people think about me? What will my friends say? What if they judge me? But understand that you need to have a close group of at least one or two people who you can fall back upon, and not worry about what will happen if they judge me, what will happen if they say something to me, because it's very, very important for us to have a support group. Now, the support group could be family, that support group could be co-workers, it could be friends. And if nothing, there are support groups out there, communities that are designed to help people, right? So, for people who are struggling with things like addiction, there are support groups, right? For people who are struggling with personal loss, there are support groups. You can look up for these support groups online, find a good, trusted support group with good reviews, and approach them. They're a bunch of strangers, but believe me, they can do wonders, because they're people who've gone through something similar. For example, there are people who've gone through a personal loss, have lost a partner, have lost a child, have lost parents, and they are all there out for each other, because they know what it is to feel like that, what it is to feel when you've lost somebody. So reach out for those support groups. If nothing else, reach out for therapists, counselors. I strongly recommend that when you have nobody otherwise to reach out to, reaching out to a good therapist or reaching out to a good counselor works really well, because they help you see the situation in a very, very different light. And of course, they will be able to help you with strategies to cope with your challenges. So definitely reach out before you burn out. Ask for help. It also builds trust. When we reach out to friends for help, it builds trust and strengthens our relationship with them. Right? And the last thing is creating micro connections. And what are micro connections? Micro connections is very simple. Just greeting somebody, saying good morning, saying thank you, having a small talk. These are small, these are small triggers, positive triggers, right? Or positive strokes that you get through every interaction. I'm sure you all realize, one small conversation with somebody, even if it is a stranger, makes you feel really nice. It instantly lifts your mood, because these micro connections trigger a lot of positive emotions within you, right? And therefore, find out or carve out avenues where you can have small conversations with somebody, whether it is a gym, whether it is at a cafe. If there is some place where you pick up your morning coffee every day, just greet the person serving you. Just ask how the day is. And even that kind of a conversation is going to really help you. So wherever you are, try to create these micro connections. Right? So these are 3 easy ways in which you can build connection, in which you can build support. Again, I'm going to stop for a moment, ask if you have questions, if there is something that you want to share, anything at all. File anything in the chat box.
Let me just see. Um,
There's one there from Noor Azin.
yeah.
Okay.
She says,
How about men? Men always keep to themselves. They don't reach out often.
That's one thing, right? Because like we teach boys growing up, boys don't cry. Men, it's conditioning. It's gender based conditioning, where men growing up are taught not to express themselves. And if you realize, therefore, if you compare the statistics in terms of the rates of depression, burnout, you will realize that men often have these rather suffer from these challenges more than women do, because women naturally also are such that they can bond very easily, right? Women express themselves more easily compared to men, and therefore they're able to establish these micro connections much better than men do. But again, like I said, even as a man or a woman, uh, you know if you realize that the situation is more than what you can handle, the best thing is to reach out. Expressing yourself may not come naturally to you, right? Because again, people will think of me as weak if I reach out, if I seek help. And if you think your friends or your family are not the best people there, like I said, reach out to support groups, reach out to therapists, reach out to counselors, because that will give you a very non-judgmental environment, a very safe environment in which you can express yourself. Reach out to your partners, right? Trust them to trust you. And you will realize that you're actually able to create a very strong relationship simply because you choose to share. So try
There's a
it.
comment from Arvin as well before, which was about sometimes self-doubt would always impede the ability to access oneself. So having someone to talk to, or a coach even, would be a good person to go and seek out for. And there's also one from Erna who says, what if you become too resilient, like over the limit and too calm?
I don't really know what it is to be overly resilient, because To me, resilience is just responding to situations as they come. Yeah. Sometimes people become so-called thick-skinned when nothing affects them, if that's what you mean by being overly resilient. You're going to close yourself to things around you, to emotions that you experience and people experience. Um, and you will realize, therefore, that your interactions in the social surrounding are going to be very, very different. So if you ever realize that you've closed yourself to your surroundings, if you've closed yourself to people around you, it might be again time for self-reflection to see if you've started coping in ways that are not healthy, right? Because sometimes shutting down is a sign of escapism. I simply deny what's happening around me and I shut down. And if that's happening to you, then it might help for us to reflect a little and again reach out for help so that we're able to identify thoughts which are not helping us. Again, this is all about thoughts and beliefs, right? So sometimes we end up having beliefs, sometimes we end up having thoughts that shut us down. So if you ever realize that that's happening to you, again, is a good time for you to reach out, because that will help you reflect upon your behavior as an individual.
I think sometimes at that point, Dr. Shreya, like even in my experience of leading teams, you may see a member change suddenly, like a team member who used to be very active, very dynamic, very engaging, suddenly go silent after a while, too calm, like nothing, anything you say is like, yeah, okay, I will do.
Yeah.
That is also a moment where it's very dangerous or almost like quite too late for the person to pick up themselves. And very often someone else, or usually it's the manager or someone else in that environment who needs to pick that up and say, hey, look, I think you look different and you look like you almost like given up on anything. And, is there something we can talk about? And, that tends to help at times.
Absolutely. And again, that's why connections, right? Because somebody needs to know you well enough to know something is off.
Yeah. Yes.
Right. So the more and more connection and support we seek, there are going to be people around you who are going to casually check in on you and say, I haven't heard from you in many days. What's up? Right. So creating that support system is very important. And for some of us, we're gifted with a ready-made support system in form of family, friends, good co-workers. For some of us, where it is not there, we'll have to actively work towards creating it. It could be through a hobby where I meet a few people and we do similar things and eventually form a good bond. It could be through something else. But yeah, we need to actively work towards creating a support system.
There's another nice suggestion also in the chat by Omar, who says, sometimes try to write in words. When you cannot cope, calm yourself. After sometimes it's more easy to express it to others after writing.
Absolutely. And when we talk about emotional awareness, we will talk about journaling again. But thank you for pointing that out. I definitely believe that writing down helps because sometimes you do not have words to express what you're going through. Writing helps you get the right words to describe what you're experiencing and therefore makes it easy for you to talk to people. Yes, definitely. So thank you for sharing that, Omar. All right, so that's our second pillar, which is connection and support. The third pillar is our purpose and our values. Again, a lot of times we do not know what drives us. We do not know what we're working towards. A quiet self-reflection will help us anchor. And if you really want to anchor, you could ask yourself these questions. What is it that drives me? What is it that I enjoy doing? Why do I get up and get ready for work every day? Is it only for my salary? Or is it something else? Do I really enjoy what I do? Right? If that's what drives me, then I know that this is what I want to work towards. And therefore, when I have challenging situations at work, I still realize that it helps me get better at what I do, simply because I enjoy doing what I do. Right? Do everything that aligns with your values. Again, what is it that you stand for? What is it that I will absolutely not compromise on? And once you've found your purpose, you will realize that striving towards it becomes easy. We looked at an example, right, of the movie Pursuit of Happiness. And if you've seen the movie, you would be able to understand what purpose and values really means. Because what drives that person is a heavy sense of uh, responsibility towards his child, and then he would do anything to ensure that his child has a safe space to stay, good food to eat. So that's what drives him. His driver is his love towards his child, to give a safe space for his child to stay. And that's what drives him. And if you really see, he really goes through really extreme experiences, but he does it all only for the child. So that's what drives him in the movie. Right? For all of us, it could be family, it could be the kind of work we do, it could be anything. Identify what motivates you, what keeps you going through a tough day. And every time you have a doubt about yourself, every time you have a question about why you are doing all of this, why do you have to put up with that terrible manager, why do you have to put up with a terrible customer, your driver is your response. I do this because, you know I do this for my family, I do this for myself, I do it because for my sense of identity. It could be anything, but having that why is important. Knowing that why is important, because again, that helps us grounded in times of challenges. Aligning our actions with our values again, because every time you realize that you are forced to do something that is against what you believe in, it creates a lot of stress. um, it's not directly about values, but again, I'll give you a simple example. I think I spoke about it last time also, the concept of emotional labor. When I feel something, but I'm supposed to express something else, right? Like we talked about, a crew in the flight. They may be annoyed at their passengers, at their guests, but they're supposed to be smiling all the time. Now, when that happens, it's a huge stressor. Right? Similarly, at work, let's say, for example, I believe in always responding to the customers with correct information. But let's say, for example, my work environment is such that helps me dodge customer questions, or that has me not respond properly, delay my responses. It's against my values, and I will feel extremely frustrated in your work environment like that, because it's against my values. If I'm in a relationship that makes me do things against my values, I will feel frustrated. So go back and question yourself, why am I doing what I'm doing? And if you have that answer, you will realize that you're able to direct your behavior and your thoughts towards your purpose much better, in a less stressful manner. Right? So that's the third pillar, which is trying to align our purpose and our values with everything that we do. And the last, but again, a very important pillar is emotional self awareness. Right? We had a question some time back, or a suggestion rather, is for us to be able to write down what we're experiencing. I think developing emotional awareness helps us do that. Right? So, one is for us to know what we're feeling. So, in the last session, when we were talking about emotional maturity, we spoke about a wheel of emotions. And we said that, we may be experiencing something, but the emotion underneath may be something else. Let's say, for example, I'm angry right now, that, my partner lied to me about something. Right? So, my expression the emotion that expresses anger, but deep within, I feel betrayed. I feel betrayed at the fact that my partner chose to lie to me. Right? So identify what is the emotion that you're experiencing. So one, to be able to recognize that is very important, to label, then to, of course, write down what it is that it's making me feel like, and then practice mindfulness, which is to stay in that emotion, experience that emotion for some time, and then allow it to pass. Because if we are stuck in that emotion, we're again going to be extremely stressed. So one trait of people who are highly resilient is for them to be able to allow themselves to experience the emotion and then let it pass. Acknowledge the situation for what it is. Yes, I'm stuck. Yes, this has happened. Yes, my boss is somebody who's very difficult to handle. Yes, it makes me angry, but I have to deal with it. And then look at possible ways of dealing with the situation at hand. And then you can use mindfulness, you can use journaling, you can use self-checks, various ways in which you keep a tab on your emotion. Simply check on yourself. How do I feel this morning? Use a mood tracker, right? How do I feel? And if constantly you realize that you're feeling under the blue, you're not feeling great for consecutively few days, you might want to question why that's happening to you, right? Or use journaling like it was suggested by some participant some time back. Write. And writing down brings a lot of clarity of thought and emotion. So that's emotional self-awareness, which is the last pillar of developing resilience. So if I want to become resilient, I need to be aware of my emotions. I need to know how to tackle my emotions, and I need to know how to grow past it, which is experience it, allow yourself to soak in it completely, but then let it go. Right? So that's emotional awareness. Cognitive flexibility, which is to be aware of my thoughts, to be able to reframe them so that I'm able to change the dialogue that I have with myself. Then to identify what my purpose and my values are so that again I'm aligned with them. And the last one is for me to find a solid social support that helps me sail through all difficult situations. So these were the 4 pillars of emotional of being resilient. And the quick everyday practices that I'm going to share with you now are anchored around those 4 pillars. So for example, taking a deep breath. So whenever I find myself in a difficult situation, the first thing that I do is take 3 quick breaths and then identify 3 ways of expressing my gratitude to somebody or something. Once I've done that, I know that not everything in my life is wrong. It's one way of also redirecting your thought, right? So if my thought is anchored into everything negative, the moment I start expressing gratitude, I realize that not everything in my life is wrong. There are few things that are still right. And therefore, what I need to do is start working towards things that are not so right. Take a 10-minute walk or some kind of a movement. Again, when I engage into physical activity, it releases happy hormones. And then because of that, my brain gets back its resources and I'm able to be more cognitively flexible. Right? So it's like a bucket. If it gets empty, you have to refill it. How do you refill it? Movement is a very, very good way of experiencing positive emotion. So you can dance, you can walk, you can exercise, whatever works for you. Connect with somebody and make it a habit. Talk to one friend every day, or talk to somebody every day for a couple of minutes, where you share about your day, what went right, what went wrong, how did it make you feel, and the connection is going to again help you feel much better to deal with the challenges at hand. Say no mindfully where you need to. Again, sometimes we become overwhelmed because there's too many things happening at the same time and we cannot say no to everything. A friend wants to meet for dinner, I have work, I need to take my kids somewhere, my spouse needs something, everything together, and I'm not able to say no to everything. I'm sorry, to anything, right? And when that happens, again, too much for me to deal with. So plan, prioritize, say no mindfully where you need to, right? But with care, of course. And lastly, reflect upon your everyday experiences. Again, journaling, very, very good way of doing this. So reflect on what did you learn, what did you do right, what did you not do so right, and what can make tomorrow better. So these are, again, quick practices that help us be in the present, deal with situation objectively, so that it doesn't become too much for us, right? There's one small exercise that I want to do, and it's probably going to be like a 2-minute exercise before we end the session, which is going to be a guided visualization. And again, relaxing, meditating, visualizing, all of these techniques are very, very important because it helps us calm down. A lot of times, situations become overwhelming and we cannot cope because our emotions are running everywhere. So one, for us to be able to calm down and then start looking at the situation objectively is what helps. But for us to calm down in the first place is important, and therefore I'm going to do with you what is called a guided visualization. Um, for that, I need you to take a moment and pause everything you're doing. I know a lot of us are working while we're attending this session. It's going to take us only 2 minutes. If we can stop what we are doing right now and be fully focused here. So let's take a moment to pause. Wherever you are, I need you to find a comfortable position. I need you to sit upright but relaxed. If you want to switch on your cameras, switch off your cameras while you're doing this, I will be okay with that. Now I need you to gently close your eyes. Let your hands rest and take a slow, deep breath in. I need you to now exhale gently. Again, inhale deeply and exhale slowly, letting go of whatever the day has carried in. Allow your breath to find a natural rhythm which is steady and effortless. With each breath, imagine your body softening, your shoulders, your jaw, even the space between your eyebrows is relaxed. You are safe and you are present. Now, in your mind, picture a version of you that is standing tall. It's centered and it's calm. This version of you has weathered storms, navigated unknowns, and found strength in unexpected places. You see not just the struggles, but the quiet victories you achieved. The days you kept going despite challenges, the times you adapted, and the moments in which you surprised yourselves. Let that image settle, not as a distant ideal, but as a truth that is within you. Your resilience isn't loud, but it's steady. It's a voice in your head that says, I will try again. It's the quiet decision to breathe, to choose, to continue. Feel that strength now, rooted in you, and it's growing within you with every breath you take. When you next take your breath, breathe in all the strength that is around you. And with every breath you take out, release all the self doubt. Inhale calm, exhale tension, inhale possibility, exhale fear. Let yourself sit for a moment in this quiet knowing you are capable, you are resilient, and you're becoming stronger with every experience. When you're ready, gently bring your awareness back to the space. Wiggle your fingers, take one more steady breath, and slowly open your eyes, carrying this grounded energy with you. Your resilience is within you, always accessible and always growing. How do you feel? Okay, common sense, good.
People say refreshing, good, relaxed, stronger emotionally, seems
Yep.
recharged.
So, this was one script that I had, but a lot of these scripts or videos are available freely on YouTube. Every time you need a little bit of energy, every time you need a little bit of, somebody telling you that you got it, go back to some of these videos. Some of them have very nice music to accompany the script. Follow this. I think it's a very wonderful way of recharging ourselves and reinstilling the belief that we can do it. Right. With this, I'd like to end the session today, but of course I need your feedback. So I'm going to again share my screen. And if there's a QR code that'll be there, so if you can scan the QR code and give me the feedback for today.
Please do scan the QR code and share the feedbacks, as it's really important for us also to know where all we can improve and where all we can be resilient going forward. So please do so. And if anyone has any problem while scanning it or the responses are not being stored, you can just write it in the chat box.
And while you, of course, once you're done filling the feedback, if there is something that you would like to share with me in terms of how you found the session, I think that would really, help me. I would love to hear from you also.
Yeah, anybody, how was the session? I'm sure Dr. Shreya has, from my side, I think she has really well taken us through the whole journey of being resilient and what all is there for us that in our bank that we can use it as a resources. So thank you, Dr. Shreya, from my side. It was very wonderful. And if anybody would like to share with her,
Likewise for me as well, Dr. Shreya. I think it was very engaging session, very good conversations and examples, and I really appreciate the participants bringing a lot of honesty in sharing
Yes.
their own personal stories, which I think is what makes these kinds of, even though it's a just 90-minute to 120-minute session, it makes it very, very relatable, very something that you will always remember and take back. And I love the fact that you gave us a lot of tools as well, that even post session we can self-administer to ourselves, recognize moments, and then be able to help ourselves as well. So from me as well, thank you so much for
Thank you.
really the effort and the knowledge and really deep insights you brought to us today. I think it's very, very much appreciable. For
Thank you.
participants, I've also shared that there are more programs coming up. Also for us, we have one more on Friday, and then we have some more formal programs to go in the beginning of July as well. So you could always go to our website on www.queristconsulting.com. The registration links are there. Dr. Shreya has a slide here as well on what's coming up. So I do hope you will register and join us there as well. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, if you want to connect back, Almost all of you received a WhatsApp message from me this morning as well on links, so you could always keep a conversation going or reach out to me if you need any help. So with that, I also want to again thank everybody for spending the time with us. Packed 2 hours. Do take 5 minutes after this call as well to reflect back on what you have learned. If there are things you'd like to share, then we have social platforms for both Querist Consulting as well as Naman HR. The more people who know things that will help them to do better, the more we are going to be able to work alongside our colleagues better as well. So with that, thank you so much. Have a
Thank you
really
very much,
wonderful
everybody.
rest of the day and stay in touch. Thank you all.